Hey guys, this is Greg, Danny, and Joe from Ritual Gaming, and we are bringing you episode 11. I completely forget what it's called. Does anyone remember what it's called? Doesn't matter.
11.
We have a special guest, Grande Patron,
It's the
here
Grande
with us.
Patron episode.
Yes, welcome, the Grande Patron episode. We will refer to it from that.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, so we wanted to get some special guests on, and we're really happy that you joined us. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's jump into our first kind of conversation here because it's definitely to do with you. So the first thing we wanted to talk about today, and I think some people that watch the videos might really be interested in, is organizing a guild. The difficulties behind it, why it's so important in the game now, and you know, how it's done. So you've obviously been quite intricate in organizing the Team Skunk guilds. And
Yes.
not just the one that we're currently in, but many of them, correct?
Correct.
Nice.
So we had about 600 people we had to put into guilds
Wow.
on the first day, and trying to organize. First of all, trying to collect the information, which was their Discord name, their in-game name, their ally codes, what kind of play style they wanted to play. How they, what other people they wanted to be with in the same guild with, and then it was really interesting. At first, they wanted to do it all with screenshots, so we had people put screenshots in a text chat, and that blew up in like a day.
Wow.
And there was like 400, and I'm like, I am not doing the data entry for this. I was like, we have to find another way. So I said, okay, how can we make people enter their own data entry? And I said, all right, well, I've done large organization type stuff before. I was like, let's just use SurveyMonkey. So we made a SurveyMonkey, and we had everybody basically enter in their own data, and then we exported that into a spreadsheet file. And then we had to use pivot tables to try and figure out how far certain people were apart, because we had, for example, we had one guy where he was he was a really high player, but he really wanted to be in a guild with his 2 kids. So how do you bring that player down and bring those other players up to get them in a similar guild? We had a similar.
I heard there was 3 guys who make some podcast who wanted to be in the same guild as well.
There were 3 guys on a podcast. Thankfully, their scores were very close together, so it was not a problem. And their scores and my score were close together. So I was like, hey, it looks like I'm going to be in the same guild with Ritual Gaming. How awesome is that? So we kind of all ended up in the same group, which is not the highest tier, but the second tier down.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's worked out really well. I think
when you were using that though, do you think that would be applicable for, say, if we have listeners that are also interested in organizing a guild right now, where they have like 25 to 50 people just on their own, not really as mass?
I think the game mechanics are different than we originally thought. Definitely you want to get players that are sort of similar play style maybe together. So it would be hard for like a casual player to be in a hardcore guild. But I don't think that it quite matters so much if you're really close to each other as far as like how you're placed, as far as like what your roster looks like. And that's because when it all came out, what was it, like 2 Sundays ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, it was not exactly how we anticipated. And you could see that because as you get into some of the lower guilds where the spread between people's rosters shows up, those guilds are succeeding very well when you have players, let's say, that are like at level 70 and players that are with other players that are level 50. So you could put a level 50 player with a level 70 player, and as long as they're both either casual or very active, it'll all work itself out.
Yeah.
Huh. So they're not going to be taking on tier 5 anytime soon, but it works out with kind of guild rewards, the daily activities and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the 600 energy, anybody can produce the 600 energy, right? And then maybe those top level players will probably end up with a better roster and probably end up in those top 3 spots. But because those chests are randomized, any player could get the best level gear, not necessarily just the top 3 or the top 10. But everybody has a chance. It's just the ones that are higher have a better chance because they usually end up in the chest.
It ended up being that way where you just kind of get a chance no matter what you are, whether you're first or last. It's just a reward to be in the guild and play that extra part of the game. And yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, like in our guild, I'm thoroughly middling. Like I maybe come in. If I break into the top 20 on a raid, I'm super pumped. But there's guys in our guild that are hitting in the millions. But I've still managed to pick up. We were comparing today. I've still managed to pick up 8 or 10 or so of the unobtainable items just by being along for the ride. And I'm glad that you're not completely locked out of it just because you came 21st. Which I'm sure is pretty much where I'm coming at the moment. Like I'm in that 20 to 25 region where I'm pulling in for each raid, and I'm still getting rewards for it. So that's a relief, because I guess the biggest thing that wasn't foreseen is how roster dependent the whole raiding thing would be.
Yeah, which I think we should get to a little bit later once we really start looking at the tiers of the raids and stuff like that. But it's interesting that at first people's reaction to it were, oh, I'm never going to get these items now. And now it seems like they're coming in slowly, right? Even if you're doing tier 5, tier 6, they're going to be a bit slower.
They also last week modified the payouts. At first, the payouts were a little bit stingy, I guess, and then they came back and realized that the EA did, and Capital Games realized that they were not dropping at a very fast rate, and so they modified that. I think the middle of last week sometime.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I remember seeing that they pushed a little patch out, and they said it's going to be a little more generous, the rewards.
Yeah.
I think, as you were mentioning earlier, Grande, that it's interesting when guilds first started, it seemed like it was going to be about, who could do the most damage or something like that. But now with the way that guild points work, it's almost like who can balance their timers the best? Who can remember what activity it is,
Yeah, so it's definitely about the timers. And if we start, especially with last week being the May the 4th week, there were timers going off all the time, no pun intended. You had timers for May the 4th that didn't really coincide very well sometimes with timers for the guild. You had, and so you really had to keep quite a lot straight. Hopefully, if we can get a couple of weeks under our belts without having double sets of timers and double rewards on other things, it'll get a little bit more easy, and it'll get a little bit more where we can kind of get back to the same routine. Some people play the game in the morning, some people play the game in the evening, some people play the game all day long, but we could get into another rhythm that may not be the same as the rhythm that we had before, before guilds, but it will be a rhythm that is sustainable for everyone, where they know they do this on this days and this other thing on this days.
Yeah, I mean, before we all played this game, we've said a couple episodes before that we used to play Pad a lot, Puzzle and Dragons, and I've seen people online talking about this game where they're like, oh, I don't like that with the guild issues, you have to farm things on a certain day, and you can't do that. I mean, you don't really have to if you don't want to, right? It's just the best way to min-max.
That is correct. It is the best way to min-max. The other thing that we've done in our in my real life, I work a lot on organization of people, and so in the process of organization of people, I've found that we need to not set a standard that everyone has to go to. What I mean by that is I don't want to set a minimum requirement level for our guild, just like I don't want to set a maximum requirement for our guild. And the reason why is because somebody may have a week vacation and not be able to play, or they may be, homesick or something and be able to play all week long. So the other thing too is that none of us, I will be at level 80, the max level, in about 3 days. And so why would I want to hinder someone's personal achievements in the game in order for the guild to do more equal amount of guild currency? That seemed a little like those two items were fighting against each other. So I kind of made a rule for our guild, which is do whatever you can and do the best you can with what you have. And I mean, because that's all I can ask of anybody. And I felt like that was a better, like a more positive way to do things. And then we didn't have people getting upset because somebody did this on that day or did this before this timer or after that timer. I mean, heck, I messed up the other day, and I did challenges before the challenge part of the raid was going on. And then I was like, oh, how did I mess that up? I mean, and then I was like, you know what though? It's okay. I'm beating myself up over it, but at least I don't have the rest of the guild beating me up because I didn't perform to some preset regulations.
Well, I mean, I think the outcome of that way of looking at it is really good. I mean, our guild, as a guild that I've played a few other games that have had similar kind of ideas of these guilds, and man, if you kind of screw up, exactly the opposite of what you're saying, then you really get in a lot of crap. And nobody in this guild is doing that, and I think just it's a good way to approach it. And yeah, I think if you're a guild leader, listen to this man.
Well, my first thought was, you know, what happens if somebody, you know, breaks their phone and can't play for a day or two? Yeah, I mean that's real life,
so
right?
We kick them right out. We don't want them anymore.
That's it. Goodbye.
You know,
Yeah.
I thought my phone has broken before, and I haven't been able to like use my phone for 4 or 5 hours, and depending on when the timers are going off, that could be really detrimental. I don't want to kick somebody out of a guild because their poor phone broke. That seems.
I mean, we just came back from a country where they really don't like Google, and so anyone with an Android device couldn't really get on. Like I had to kind of backdoor my way into even squeaking out a few. And so yeah, essentially half the kind of leadership of the guild wouldn't have been pulling their weight.
and you notice not a word was said about that. You know, it was like hey, you guys communicated it, and it was good.
A few people get a little fed up when the ones that are easier. I mean, originally I guess this really mattered for the ones where it's very easy for the whole guild to synchronize, like Galactic War. Just finish your 24. Don't do 36. But it's like, well, why not? Just do your 36. Because someone else is going to die on the last node and only do 23. And then, like, just do as much as you can do. And the difference of, like, the 30 raid currency, guild currency you would have got is not really worth throwing your rattle out of the pram about.
Well, this kind of falls in nicely. The next thing we're going to talk about is time zones and guild challenges. Now, I was thinking this morning, is there a time zone that somebody could be in a guild where they can only get 2 resets? So say, for example, with our guild,
yes,
we're quite lucky. So there is, okay, because we can
yes.
get 3 resets on certain.
So they still get 3 resets, but it is really hard. And so let me give you an example. So because I started the guild, and I'm in the United States, and I'm in the central time zone for the United States. So basically, if somebody is 6 hours ahead of me, they only have 30 minutes. Let's take like the challenge day, right? Where it's the challenge table, the Plo Koon table, where most everyone can get 16 challenges in on that day. I think that's the Wednesday Thursday day kind of. If you look at that one, they only have 30 minutes to try and get in 8 challenges. Well, if you look at the cooldowns, they can only get in like 6.
Actually impossible.
They can only get in 6. So, like, for example, one of our other guild leaders, which I don't know if you've noticed this, but I tried to separate out guild leaders based on time zones. So you guys are guild officers, kind of in the Pacific, and then Rogue is a guild officer that's in Europe. So that way, one of us is always online. He's like, man, I can only get done 14. I can only get done 14, and I was like, look, it is whatever you can do. There are also some times. Because he has a reset, and then 30 minutes, he's pushed us over on the light side, dark side days, and on the hard node days, he's pushed us over onto tier 7. so we all got more guild currency because he had an extra late reset, and so he could push us over the top.
I did notice, like, there was someone out there just the last minute just being like, oh, it worked out. So, yeah, I guess that's him.
Yeah, so that's Rogue, and there's a couple other guys in there that are like in Poland and Germany, and those guys are able to kind of push us over because they have least. You guys have resets early. He has resets late because you guys are technically on, the west side of my time zone, and they are on the east side of my time zone.
Right. Yeah. So,
I mean, I guess as a guild, we're quite lucky that we have a very wide. We basically spread the entire world.
We're so international.
Yeah. International.
Yeah. Cosmopolitan.
Team Skunk International.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's interesting to see when people's time zones are, because I can look at it and I can go, okay, they hit their reset in the last hour. What time zone is it where it's midnight, or depending on if you're daylight savings or not, what time zone is it between midnight and 1 o'clock? And I look at it and I go, holy moly, they're like in like either Russia or like the Middle East or something like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, they're like in Germany potentially, or they're in England potentially, or they're in Poland. So there's some time zones. We kind of miss a big swath except for one guy. Like we missed the part of mainland China, but somewhere in there's one guy. I think he must be like Australia maybe or something. I don't know. But there's one guy that hits in the middle, and then there's a big lag until we get all of the Europeans again.
Well, we can tell you why there's not in mainland China, because it's annoying as hell to try and play there.
Yeah,
Alright,
he
so
must.
now that I think before we finish this section, we should just talk about the guild that we're talking about. Obviously, we're talking about the Team Skunk guilds. All the ritual guys and Grande Patron we're in the Omega guild. And also, we'll quickly address a little mic issues that we could be having. Danny and I are obviously in the same room, so we are sharing a very ghetto setup of a single
We're also
mic.
getting real comfy.
We're very cuddly, and we're trying to put
All
this
this
episode
space.
together. Yeah, Joe and Grande have a lot of space, but hopefully, I think the sound should be okay. So let's go in and let's talk about Tier 5. Obviously, as soon as we got enough credits in our guild, we started Tier 5 right away. Definitely in the first 2 weeks of raiding, we saw the raid change a little bit. There were some bugs that were going on. Leader skills didn't work for the entire time, which I think would have been a lot bigger of a deal for certain players. For example, everyone knows we were really hardcore into droids. If you don't have leader skills with droids, it's pretty pointless.
Yeah, it's an absolutely pointless comp to have.
Yeah.
As soon as the leader skills kicked back in today, I did about 30% more damage.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So Tier 5, what did you think about Tier 5, Joe?
Well, we were all super excited. I remember being up at the time, and Patron was like, "We got the credits, go, go, go!" And we just hit it straight away. And then all of a sudden, it was done. And some people hadn't even woken up yet, and it was the first raid we'd ever done. And it was like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming. Like we kind of, the initial fear was like, all right, this is going to take us 2 days. No one worry, you're all going to have a bite at the cherry, and that certainly wasn't the case. We blew through it in a very short period of time, and it got activated actually right at that swath of time we were talking about, that Patron was talking about, where we're not very active as a guild. So what happened is we all dug in at the beginning, and then as soon as East Coast America started waking up, they just started hammering into it, and by the time West Coast woke up, we were done. And so maybe 10 or 15 members of the guild didn't even get to contribute a single damage point. So I guess the short answer is too easy for us, for our particular guild.
So once we moved on to Tier 6, Grande, what did you, on the first day we were trying Tier 6, were you a little worried when you saw the progression?
Well, being officers, leaders, we're able to look at everybody's inventory, and I was looking at my own inventory, and I had been very focused on only 5 light side characters and 5 dark side characters. I had pretty much left everyone else in the dust, somewhere in the 30s and 40s, and somewhere around 2-star, 3-star. And I was like, oh no, I have to reevaluate my character roster. because I was only able to get in 1.5 squads the first time, so I started rolling back through other people's rosters, and I said, the rest, almost everybody else is going to have a similar problem. They are not going to be able to do 5 sets of attacks with a full roster. This is going to take us a while.
Yeah.
And, I started that, like I said, I started it right whenever we had enough credits, which we had enough credits right after East Coast resets. So I started it. Some of us got in the first part before the first reset. So it took us a total of 4 resets to do the first tier 6. Most people only saw 3 resets. I think there's only 4 or 5 people that got in the first one before the cooldowns happened, or the resets happened on the characters. It did take us a long time, but I said, okay, what do we know? We know that we get somewhere between 3 and 4 times better from the first time we do it to the second time we do it. And I said, let's take our experience from tier level 5, which we did the tier level 5 in about 9 hours. The second time. The first time we did it in about 14, and then the third time we did it in 2.5 hours. And so I thought, okay, we're going to get substantially better the second time, and we're in it for the second time, and we are substantially better. We're going to go from we're going to go from 4 resets to 2 resets on this particular raid. And originally I had kind of let everybody in the guild know, hey, it looks like we're going to do tier 6, tier 6, tier 5, tier 6, tier 6, tier 5. Because what my main goal is for us to get in a rhythm where we are always raiding. If we are always raiding, then it becomes part of a habit where we understand. Everybody goes, oh, I'm in my game, I need to do the raiding. And that's rather than, do we have enough credits? Are we actually raiding, or are we not actually raiding? I think we're going to be able to continue on with just the tier 6s from this point forward.
And I think that's a really good way of doing it, is just continuously always be raiding, because then you're going to get better at it, whereas you're just waiting around otherwise, and then you kind of just forget about it, and then 3 days later you got to be like, oh, okay, so raids again. What do I do? Okay, and I got to rethink my whole comp and my whole way of playing this game again. So yeah, it's a very smart.
Even things like, you haven't raided for a while, so then you forget that Rancor is bellowing or removes taunts or something, and then you accidentally taunt up just before he does it, and it's gone or something like that. But if you're raiding all the time, you're remembering all those little tricks, you're getting into a rhythm, it's definitely a lot better. Now, Danny, what would you recommend then for viewers that are kind of watching this and thinking, okay, my guild's a bit further back. Let's think of our friend Brian, the 7-star Magger Trooper man. This is our friend, and he asked us recently, he's like, why couldn't I be in the guild? And I said, Brian, because you have a 7-star Magma Trooper, and you focused on it way too much. And that's why, man, you can't do it. Yeah. So with the guilds that are hanging around, kind of more casually, what's going to be difficult when they approach tier 6?
Yeah, okay, well, if they are casual, then they really don't know, or they wouldn't approach it in the way that they understand what is better in each phase. Is that what they're called?
Yeah,
phase. Each phase of the guild. So, for example, the first phase, you don't want to bring in all your DPS dudes right away. You don't want to just immediately hammer them down with damage, because it won't work, because the mechanics of phase 1 just don't work that way. So, they might struggle through the 5th one, and then once they get to tier 6, they're going to be lost. I think. I think they just really have to hammer down tier 5 first,
and rosters,
and start to understand what is the best composition for each phase. Once you get a handle on that, just like kind of what we did, we just did it in a more speedy way. We hammered down our time, we halved it almost immediately. And then that's what we're doing with tier 6. So it's easy to do when you have a big group of people that kind of have good rosters and they know what to expect. So yeah, that's what you have to expect, is just kind of listen to this show and follow exactly what we're saying.
Well, let's.
I think the key is what Patron said, is that always be ready.
Way up here on this high horse.
Yeah, up here somewhere.
So,
Can't see it.
Can I tell you something kind of interesting? I saw it the first time. It's almost like the game developers are trying to teach us what's important. And what I would say is the table that teaches you what's important the most is the Plo Koon challenge table. Do you remember whenever we first, when they first opened up to go to 80, and the first one we saw that that INT gear and the Mace Windu challenge, and a bunch of people had trouble with that.
Yeah.
And it was the first time, and to my knowledge, maybe the only time I've ever seen a recommendation from the developers, and that was on the main forums. They actually said, "Get Tebow and put him as lead."
No way.
And I
didn't know that.
yes,
Yeah, they did
yes,
they called it like a community spotlight, and they said like, check
On
out this
Tebow.
guy on YouTube who put Tebow
Yeah.
as a lead and suddenly won. They're like, check
Yeah.
it out. You don't need to just run a speed Jedi team and just worry about arena and nothing else.
And so what I think is that if you want to see where the game is going, look at that table and try to understand what works. So here's something that's interesting. Because of all of the double days that we had with the May the 4th, and because of the way Tier 6 works, I've been working on getting a bunch of characters to Tier 6. I mean, to star level 6 for the Tier 6 raids. Miraculously, my challenges got so much easier on that table because, you need a group of healers. You need a group of support characters. You need a group of attack characters. And then whenever you go back and you look at raids, you go, oh wait, against the Gamorrean guards, I need a cleanser. Oh, against the Gamorrean guards, I need a stunner. Oh, against the Gamorrean guards, it works out good to have a taunter. Against the Gamorrean guards, it works to have a debuffer and a buffer. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, maybe. So months and weeks earlier, they were sort of putting training wheels on in the challenge table.
Well, I also think it was kind of a failing on their part as well. Don't want to let them off too lightly. In that they balanced the game poorly to start with, especially in the competitive modes. Because as much as I agree, like the challenge table is like it was the only part of the game perhaps where thinking about turn meter reduction and debuffs and buffs actually mattered, and that was, I think, a failing on their part. Like in Arena, it didn't matter. It was just go fast and go hard.
Yeah.
And then in Galactic War, it was just heal up and just tank your way through. And these were not very like refined or interesting tactics to have to deal with, And I think they just kind of, it was a new game. It's not a major failure for a new game to not have everything perfect, but light side and dark side tables, you just had to get your team high enough so that the levels were easy and you could 3-star them.
I think
Yeah,
too,
and so like you said, like the challenge tables were the only ones where they really made you think. And now they finally, with the raid, added another mode that actually matters. Because at a certain point, those challenges, the rewards didn't even really matter that much anymore.
No.
And so now it really matters. You really need that roster. You really need the utility and the different characters and the different abilities. And that, it's great.
I think too, it's already reflecting in Arena with their changes that they've made. You've seen the videos of people running Tebow lead at a higher level now, and I think that definitely is a good kind of sign that they are making significant improvements in the PvP.
And there's just diversifying the more compositions you can run in PvP.
Yeah.
Before it was just all the same.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to go into that a little bit heavier later, but what I
Sure.
really want to talk about right now is, for you guys, what's shining right now in the first phase of the raid?
Nice.
When we're talking about Tier 5, Tier 6, let's just go through a couple characters together. So, Grand Patron, maybe you can give us one or two that you think are really vital?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you that in the first phase, against the Gamorrean guards, the first thing I saw was every one of the Gamorrean guards is buffed up. They both have taunts going on. Some of them have counters going on. They all have like offense up, and I thought, okay, I need a character that could get rid of all of that stuff. And thankfully, because I kind of went Night Sisters early, I said, Asajj Ventress. She can pull all that stuff down.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And here she is. Here she is sitting at 5 stars and level 64. I said it doesn't take me very long to get her in the game. So I said, okay, we're just gonna farm the heck out of Asajj Ventress in the squad arena cantina shipments, in this, and we're gonna get her up. And sure enough, I got her. You know, she's still sitting at 64, but I got her to 6-star, and I you know, increased a bunch of her abilities, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now we have a cleanser, a debuffer, and we also have the ability to stun with Asajj Ventress at the same time. So that gave me two things that let me focus on the center Gamorrean Guard rather than the two side Gamorrean Guards. So I would definitely say that Asajj Ventress is my kind of sleeper for the first phase.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and haven't rated much, the only damage that matters is the damage you do to the center guard. So, you know, obviously that's your primary target, is to just start wailing on him.
For you, who's your guy then?
For me, it was definitely Qui-Gon for a lot of the reasons listed already by Patron. It was, you know, you've got this taunt on the right, and you got this taunt with retribution on the left. And I looked through my roster and I said, the only person I have that can remove buffs is Qui-Gon. And so, it was a you know, fairly chalk and cheese, you know, fight fire with fire kind of situation. Like they're just threw him in, get rid of that retribution, and keep on wailing on the captain. And you know, they're not asking too much out of you tactically. Just look at what's going on the screen. Those little green and red squares above their heads mean something now, and you need to deal with them, or you will just die.
Yeah, definitely. Danny?
Yeah, Qui-Gon is definitely in my A team whenever I go into the Gamorrean Guards. But I think Royal Guard, obviously, for obvious reasons, is just so good. He's the taunt that you need. And now that taunts take the counter hits with that taunt with retribution. Yeah, the word that everyone knows.
Unique.
You know it. You look it up.
Just leave it alone and then understand what I'm saying. But yeah, no. So now that he takes the counter, you know, you can continue hacking away on him and get him down. So then you can focus on the middle guy. So yeah, just Royal Guard is just all around really good in there.
That stun doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, and the stun.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
the stun doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
God, that stun just hits so often. I mean, I just got it up recently, and every time it hits, I'm just like, wow, it's just so powerful.
Just so amazing, bro. God.
I immediately, as soon as I started that first phase, I thought, I gotta start farming Akbar.
That's what I did, yeah.
I really want Akbar. I'm trying to get him up for that first phase. He's definitely good for the first phase, and his dispel and everything like that.
Just a cool character, anyways.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go second phase. So second phase, for people that don't know, is when the Rancor officially comes out of the door, and when you want to, you're able to kill the door panel, and you can squash him, and he becomes very vulnerable to attack and cannot attack you. So, Danny, what did you think? What were you going to throw in here?
Okay, so I'm still, like when I said you should figure out this part of the game, I'm still figuring out this part of the game. So what I usually do is I just throw all my DPS dudes in right away and just go to town. Just hammer his face as much as I can and continue to do so until my roster's depleted, but just kind of mix up my heavy hitters in each comp so I at least can do an all-around spread damage rather than just like all my damage at once and then almost nothing, you know. So that's what I do.
What are you doing, Grande Patron?
Okay, so in this phase, well, one of the things we didn't really talk about is the escape button. This is probably the phase where I use the escape button the most, because I'm trying to get out a healer and a taunter. So I pretty much put a healer and a taunter in with three heavy hitters. And whenever I say a heavy hitter, I don't want a character that uses an AoE. I want a character that uses like a call and assist. So this would be where Qui-Gon is good again. This would be like where Geonosian Soldier is good again. This would be where IG-88 is good again. I'm sorry, IG-86 is good again. All these characters that basically you could double hit. And then also too, we're down to one guy. So Tebow with turn meter reduction is really great. and then you just gotta, and then the kind of the main strategy I use is you gotta look up in that upper right-hand corner where you can see what the Rancor's cooldowns are, so that you're shutting that door before he gets to bellow, and trying to before he gets his AOE off. So you just gotta, and then the other thing too is it's a little bit like Galactic War in that you can, if it just doesn't go right, just retreat all your characters out and try again.
I just found that out today. I'm definitely doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna say that?
And then, and then the other one too is now that leader abilities are working, deciding which character you're going to put in and having some kind of synergy with those characters matters. So I'll still put in like a Qui-Gon lead and put all the Jedi in together, and then I'll go back and I'll put in like all the droids I have with like a Poggle. So I'm still kind of like sorting my guys based on where there are synergies in that particular area.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Joe, what do you use in there?
It's interesting because you were just saying, Patron, how you're not interested in the AoE guys, but I do like a little bit of AoE here if it comes along with some debuffs. So, as we said a million times, we like some droids, and also Phasma, who what it allows you to do is when the door panel does come up, something like Phasma, something like HK-47's grenade, it allows you to put damage on the boss and the door panel at the same time as maybe managing to get a debuff on the boss. So for example, I ran Phasma and HK-47, one more DPS healer and a taunt. And what that allowed me to do was take out the door panel at the same time as putting slow on the Rancor. And that way, when he was crushed by the door, his turn meter just took 30% longer to fill up. So I just had that little bit extra time to just wail on the Rancor.
I'm gonna have to try that technique.
When Phasma's AoE takes a little bit off the door panel and puts him on slow, and then you finish off the door panel and the thing goes down, it takes that much longer. You get 3 full rounds of your whole team to just wail on his head. And then,
nice.
And then if you really look at the numbers there, it seems like it would be a lot more that you're doing.
Yeah,
you are sacrificing the direct damage, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want just a whole team of AoEs, so you can do it. But I mean, for example, just running HK-47 and IG-88. IG-88 does the AoE. I find his heal block that he does, it doesn't matter. But it hits the door hard enough to take the panel down to 50%, and you didn't waste the turn just attacking it. And then you use your healer and your taunt to finish off the button, and then all your guys are ready to go, and at the same time, the Rancor's slowed. It's just, I don't know if it's a valid tactic, but I've been fiddling around with it because seeing the little slow running man on top of his head just makes me happy.
There you go.
You were saying though that the healing immunity doesn't matter, but isn't this in this phase, if he is debuffed, he is significantly more open to damage? Am I wrong in thinking that?
Oh, you know what? You might be right. I feel like I read that.
Yeah.
Because
he's suffering from a debuff, he takes more damage.
He takes more damage, right? And it's really hard to debuff him because he can't be stunned. But there are a couple things, and it's healing immunity, and he can also be slowed.
Yeah, slow.
And for me, I mean, for someone that's been playing this game for a while too, if people are watching and they're like, man, I wish Sid was good in this raid. Because Sidious was amazing in PvP for ages and ages and ages. And now he's pretty bad in PvP, and he doesn't really seem to fit in the raid very much. However, I like to put him in here because his healing immunity, kind of sticks every once in a while.
And exactly what Joe is saying too, just his AoE can take that trapdoor down a little bit, what you need.
Yeah, and then you get the boss a bit more vulnerable, and you can do more damage when the door's down.
Sid's a valid, okay tune in this.
Because I feel like a lot of people would have him at least at 6 stars. Right?
Yeah.
If they've been playing the game for a while, there was a point where he was the be-all and end-all of Arena. So
I heard he was good. Yeah.
Around January this year, it was just the Sid party.
And now it's the 5 show.
It is the 5 show.
Let's not get into that. You're going to upset me.
Yeah. Very upsetting.
All right, so let's let's skip phase 3 because we're running a bit over time here.
Sure.
And let's just quickly talk about phase 4. So once we get into phase 4, what are you looking at, Patron?
So phase 4 is straight up AOE. I mean, straight up DPS all the time. I'm looking for my heavy hitters. I'm looking to kind of, you know, hit them as much as I can, as hard as I can. And that's pretty much how I run it. I run 1 taunt, 1 healer, and 3 heavy hitters as much as I can.
Yeah, it seems to be the way to go. Are you looking at it any differently, Joe?
No, pretty much agree with that. What 2 honorable mentions? Well, one is just another heavy hitter, but Resistance Pilot, since his nerf, has been seen as you know, is less favored, the second son. But actually, I came to the realization that his potency is her potency is so high that her expose sticks a lot in phase 4. And when you expose the Rancor, the next person who hits him does him for about 20k. I exposed him with my second pick, Yoda on the team. And Yoda, who doesn't really have much of a primary attack, hit for something like 22k on a basic attack.
Wow. Nice.
And to follow up, Yoda, on phase 4, certainly, a lot of people complaining that Yoda's foresight doesn't trigger on phase 2 and 3. But maybe it was just today's raid, I don't know. This is not well-tested data. But that foresight came up a lot. And then, you know, when you can spread foresight, it's party time.
Oh, yeah.
So those are my 2. But apart from that, pretty much what Patron said. Give yourself some backup, get a taunt to take the damage, and just fire away.
I love Royal Guard in that one too. I just love Royal Guard in general because then you don't have to waste your time like getting ready to taunt at the right time, and he taunts so many times for your different DPS. And
I don't think I've ever seen the Royal Guard and thought, he doesn't look good here. He doesn't belong here. Get out of here, Royal Guard.
Well, I mean, Royal Guard gets a free turn multiple times during the game.
Yeah.
That right there, it's like the opposite of a stun where you lose a turn. Royal Guard, as far as I know, is the only character that gets a free turn, and he gets it multiple times.
And it's cool because you can bring in Qui-Gon to counter him, but then he'll just be like, oh, I'll do it again, like right away. I don't know why you're even trying.
I'm friends with this guy too. I'm also gonna protect him.
Yeah, I'm friends with everybody. I just protect everybody all the time.
It's in my name. I'm a god. It's what I do.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully that's helped you guys out a bit with the tier 6 and tier 5 raids. We're definitely going to be going into them as we progress as guild a bit more in the episodes, but right now, you know, they're kind of just as fresh with us as they are probably with you guys. So if you've experienced anything, if you found some guys that are really amazing during certain phases, tell us in the comments because we want to know. Like, I want to know those picks.
I would like to
really
try that out. Yeah.
So, little quick thing before we move away from guilds. What do you guys think about it? It just happened today, which was really lucky because we're just about to do the show. What do you think about the introduction of the unfarmable items to the guild vendor for what is it? Something like 8,000.
You were really stoked on this. I think.
I was stoked.
Yeah,
on
you
this.
were like, "Are you gonna divert all your credits to this?" And both Joe and I are like, "Nope." I like the idea of having a character more and just building up that roster. Eventually, this will come. Eventually, I can, max out everybody. But for right now, I just want to get more startup characters. That's me.
Yeah, that's what I'd agree with Danny. Like, until I'm running 5 full teams of 5 in the raid, my focus is broadening my roster, not really honing the point of the key characters. I'll want to do that, and you will naturally be doing that slowly with raid rewards anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I see no reason myself to really
speed it up as much as you can.
Speed it up. Yeah.
That's true. What do you think, Patron?
So, I'm not going for Jawa Engineer, and I'm not going for the Gamorrean Guard at the moment. I have been using the guild store as a Rey / Ewok Elder shard shop,
Nice.
And that is those are mainly because Rey is so awesome. I just want Rey, and I want her to where she's viable. And the second one is because Ewok Elder is the only light side resurrector / healer, basically like a light side Daka, minus the stun. And so I said, okay, this is what I'm doing with this. Will I change? Absolutely. I can easily see where I'm going to be looking at some of that gear. I just think it may be a few weeks away. Once I get Ray totally done and I'm just sitting there waiting for for Ewok Elder to drop in that guild store, and I'm sitting here with enough credits, and maybe I just have a couple, I need a couple more of these, of these Mech 10 toggles, or maybe I need a couple more of the Mech 10 neuroserver, those electric binocular things. I could easily see myself, if I could easily see myself saying, man, I could get Qui-Gon. I could get Qui-Gon up, or I could get Lumi up, or I could get somebody else
tempting.
up higher. Yeah. It's very tempting, especially whenever, that gets you to a whole nother gear level, and you might need that for PvP. Let's say it's not so much that I need it for the guild, but I really might need it for PvP.
I wanna get a guy that's finished on purple and it's moved to that gold, or whatever it is, yellow. That's what I want.
That would be nice.
So
Well, we all want, Danny.
Yeah, well.
So I have one of my allies at the moment sharing a gear level 10 Ray with me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so not only is it the purple bands, but it's also the purple parentheses on the inside.
Is that you walking?
It is who is it? It is Hungry Eyes.
Oh, Hungry Eyes, yeah.
Hungry Eyes is sharing that with me. And so I tried her out, and she is no longer squishy. Let's put it that way. She now has her health bar looks just like everybody else's.
Oh my God. She's like TIE fighter pilot in his primo days.
She's
gross.
scary right
She's
now.
already so gross when people haven't,
Yeah, you know what's really fun? Hungry Eyes is on my server, and I have to fight that Ray every day.
No.
Otherwise, I can't. Otherwise, he's #1 on my server. I sent you his team today.
Oh,
and
you did send us that.
Yeah, that's the team I'm talking about, and that's just. Yeah, I just settled for second today.
So that we can definitely talk about PvP, because I think it has changed with all this attainable gear.
Let's go into that now, actually, because I think with the items, it kind of comes down to whether or not you want to broaden your horizons with your rosters and therefore do more damage, or do you want to focus a bit more on PvP, get those guys up, get that sick Gear 10 Ray. Now, we kind of had the idea that in Arena, there's been a lot more variance, which we said when Protection first came in, we really hoped that it would go this way. And we've seen so many teams be viable now. And I think it's the best thing for the game, because now you see it where you don't have people thinking, oh, I don't have this guy, I just can't compete. When Sid was there and he was just destroying people, if you didn't have a Sid, and you didn't have that healing immunity, it was a big deal. If you didn't have TIE fighter pilot when he was really big, and you weren't a whale like that, then it was hard to compete.
Qui-Gon in his day.
Qui-Gon when he first came out. And now all those things have kind of fallen by the wayside, and I just can't get over how many teams you can actually run. It's great.
Yeah, it makes me super happy.
Yeah, so let's go through what we're all running right now, because I think for once, the first episode ever, it's not going to be we run the droids.
Yeah.
So let's start with Patron, who probably doesn't run droids, I'm hoping.
So I do not run droids.
Great.
I run kind of a modified Jedi team. So I run Qui-Gon lead, 7 stars, and I have Omega Mats on his second ability.
The assist.
And then the assist. And then I have Royal Guard sitting at 6 stars at the moment. And I kind of regrettably put Omega Mats on his first ability, but it does make him hit 15% harder. So at least he hits somewhat normal whenever he uses Pike. And then I run Lumi maxed out, but with no Omega ability mats. And then I run Geonosian Soldier, maxed out gear level 9 with Omegas on his Swarm, which is his second ability for 15% more damage. And then rounding it out, I run ETH Koth, maxed out with no Omegas yet.
ETH Koth, eh?
ETH Koth. ETH Koth was probably my second 7-star, and maybe not the greatest character to have in that position, but I will tell you that if I go up against a droid team at 7-star abilities, he stuns every droid.
Yeah, you must
every
just
time.
run him over.
I mean, effectively, he makes IG-88's health steal not important. He makes, an IG-86 not an issue. So pretty much, he's a droid killer for me. Coming up in the ranks, I can see very quickly, probably in the next couple of days, I will be running an Asajj Ventress on that team instead of running ETH Koth. Now that would be going up against the double taunt. So that would be going up against what I see in my PvP quite a bit, which is Stormtrooper Han with Royal Guard.
Oh yeah.
All the time, all over the place.
That would be my and then also potentially I see a lot of Akbar leads. So I'll see an Akbar lead. The main guy that I'm kind of fighting against all the time is an Akbar lead, Royal Guard, Stormtrooper Han, Geonosian Soldier, and Leia.
Ooh,
What's nice?
The exact same team on my server. It's awful.
So what's nice about Asajj Ventress is she can actually unstealth Leia. And so because that's part of her debuffs is an unstealth.
Wow.
It doesn't. And so the potential there is that you can get to her quicker. Do I think I can't leave that team in there because the AI plays Asajj Ventress terribly. So it would be a move up the ladder, not a stay and hold kind of team.
And I saw you posting in the group the other day. You're snagging first with ETH Koth in your team, so maximum respect to you.
I am, and I'm doing it with 1 refresh and 0 cooldowns. So I don't ever refresh the cooldowns. I only wait out the timer and I run 10 PvP matches to get first. I did settle for second yesterday, just because I didn't feel like pushing it that hard. And I will tell you, and we could talk about this about first versus second. If you look at the difference between first versus second, it effectively means one less pick out of the shipments every other day. That's really what the difference means, and then 50 less crystals. So if you could get up into those, if you can get up above 5 every time, then you're in that.
That's what I was telling Greg. I was saying up above 5, you're sitting pretty. It's okay,
I'm not going to spend 50 crystals to snag first if I'm sitting in third.
Yeah.
Well, especially if I get sniped. Yeah, I don't want to get sniped out of that position either. So I'm not gonna. I'm not. The risk reward doesn't seem like it's there for me.
So on your server, you're actually able to. You're not doing the kind of quick go in at 10 minutes left or something like that, and then quickly come out, reset. You're using the full 10 games.
I'm using the full 10 games, and I do not use the timers. So here's how this. So I mean, I don't reset the cooldowns on the timers.
Right.
So how this works is I probably start about 2 hours before my payout. I'll run one. I'll set a timer on my phone for 10 minutes. I'll pop it open. I'll run another 2.5 minute deal. I'll shut the game down, set the timer again for 10 minutes, go back in. And that way I can get the full 10 in that 2 hour period. And if somebody knocks me down, I just don't worry about it. But I don't snipe. But I don't want to spend I'd rather spend an additional 100 crystals on an additional 5 battles than spend it to refresh that cooldown timer.
Right.
Now in my particular time period, there are only 3 other people going for first that I can tell at the same time. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that'll hop on, and maybe just hit one, because they don't want to fall too far down the ranks. But there's only about 3 or 4 guys going for those top spots. you know, it's because I'm okay with second, or I'm okay with third, that I would do that. When I really push for it, when I'm like, no, I really want first today, then I'll probably end up hitting that I'll end up refreshing that cooldown timer. And it is bothersome whenever you're sitting there in first with 11 minutes to go and you get sniped out of first. That's really heartbreaking.
It's very frustrating.
So,
Man, ladies just love this talk. When you're like, I play this phone game, and I set a timer on my phone every 10 minutes, so I got to go back to this phone game.
so yeah.
I was thinking about using the medium of Galaxy of Heroes to just
And if I
propose to my
miss it,
girlfriend.
I mean,
She'll dig
after
it.
6 o'clock, I'm gonna be pissed, and I'm just gonna be real bummed out for the rest of the night.
Yeah, so I pretty much try to not let this game affect my mood. You know, it's all about, I mean, this is supposed to be a stress reliever, right? This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And so I have not put pressure on myself to do anything, just like I don't put pressure on the guild to do anything, because it's supposed to be fun. I mean, if it's not fun, people will quit. I don't want anybody quitting, so let's make it fun.
All right, let's move on to a listener question, actually, that we had. And Joe, this one, do you have the document in front of you so you can do the question?
Yeah. So lunges was... So I was a bit of an idiot. And so we have an audio version of this podcast. You might be listening to it now, or you might be on YouTube. And it's, you know, we're on iTunes under Ritual Gaming. Go check it out. But I totally forgot to upload... an episode a couple of weeks back. So this fella Lunges dropped me a message. He's like, hey, I'm trying to download episode 9. It's not up. And then I said, go check it out. You got 9 and 10 in one day. Happy birthday. And then he's like, by the way, do you do listener questions? And he says, with Jawa Engineer coming out, and you know, the way the meta has changed up so much, you're seeing Ewok teams, you're seeing this, you're seeing that. Do you ever see Jawa teams in the future? And he's like, it would be cool if you guys could chat about it on the show. So I guess I'll start by saying my answer is I really, really, really hope so. But I'm not sure right now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Right now, absolutely not. There is no synergy between the 3 Jawas that exist. And they're only good in... They're good in certain ways, but they're good with other things. So they're good against droids, or they're good with droids now. But they're not good together. So I
guess they suffer a similar thing to Eth Koth, like in that they're good in this one situation which you may or may not come up against.
Exactly.
Like if they ever make a droid-based raids, it's going to be like all of a sudden like those weird Left Behind Jedis and Jawas all over the place. You know, the Imagundis and Eth Koths and
the Rejects raid, the freaks of the Star Wars universe raid.
Even imagine Ugnaught will become, you know, important.
Oh yeah, Ugnaught will be the most OP guy in the game. Well, for this one particular raid, which kind of as used.
When I saw this question, it just made me think of really the top stars in this current meta, talking about people running Royal Guard and ST Han in the same 5s. Kylo Ren's still pretty good. All these dudes that just destroy Jawas, just stomp on Jawas, eat little Jawa flakes for breakfast in the morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And with AoE like that, unless you're running, I mean, you would have to be running, I think if you were going to run the 3 Jawas, then you would have to run Royal Guard and Daka with them, and just pray that those stuns hit, so when you're doing your AoEs, you're not going to get destroyed, and you're not going to lose Royal Guard right away. And maybe if you did that, then maybe it's possible, but I just don't see it. Especially if you've got a whale on your server that's running, what's his name, Rex or something.
I honestly think, like, with Jawas and Ewoks and even Ugnaught, because all the little people of Star Wars, right? I honestly think there should be just a higher chance of dodge. It just makes sense. You know? Like, oh, I missed him.
I swung my lightsaber right over his tiny little head.
When Qui-Gon goes into
the Ewoks, all the smaller characters should have more evade.
Exactly. Yeah.
Watch. Let's see a patch in 3 days.
I mean, if a door panel can dodge, then Jawa
surely a littler person could.
Yeah, for a Rancor that has the door panel on him.
Oh my god, yeah. Today I pulled off IG-86's assist attack on the Rancor with a door on his head and he dodged it.
Yeah.
I love it when
Sure.
Rancor dodges. You just kind of yell at your own tune, like, "Are you an idiot? This guy is the biggest thing."
I've seen you use that laser pistol like 3,000 times, man.
Yeah.
And now you choose to miss.
I want to see when ships get introduced and you can like build your way up to the Death Star and like whole planets are dodging something like that. What? You're kidding me.
To answer Lunge's question, I would love to see, a Jawa team, but you're missing a couple, right? And the other thing is they do not synergize well together. So I don't see that as being a possibility. Whenever you look at it and you see, Rebels synergize better, or you see Empire synergize better, or you see Droids synergize better, I get this question a lot because, I spend a lot of time on the Discord helping people with their own roster, and they're like, where am I at and where should I go for? And I have to, a lot of times I have to say, okay, where are you coming from and where do you want to be? If you just want to collect them because you think they're cool, collect them because you think they're cool. If you think that they're going to be the next meta, don't go for them. I get a lot of people who tell me, hey, I'm farming hard for Mace Windu. And I'm like, you're going to be there a while, because he doesn't have a whole lot of places where you could get him. Or they tell me they're farming hard for somebody that only has one hard node and never is available in a shop. And I'm like, you're going to be there a while. This game is basically
when Royal Guard got good, So
yeah, we were, but at least you had two places to get him,
true, yeah.
right? I mean, at least it wasn't Resistance Trooper, right? At least it wasn't Ewok Elder before Ewok Elder was in the guild, was in the guild shop. It's always a balancing game, right? So you always have first of all, you're balancing how easy is it to get the character, how easy is it to get them start up. Then you've got how easy is it to get their gear. Some characters are really easy to gear, some characters are really hard to gear. Then you have to say, okay, now that I've looked at all of this, how good is this character in actually fighting? And so you're weighing these three different things against each other and trying to figure out, is this character worth the effort that it takes to actually get them? And if I was looking at those characters, at Jawa Engineer, are my shard currency, is it worth more to get Ray shards or is it worth more to get Jawa Engineer? Is it worth more to get Ray shards? Is it worth more to get Jawa Engineer shards, or is it worth more to get unobtainable gear? When you look at it in that scenario, I think the answer becomes a little more obvious.
Yeah.
Unless you run droids.
Unless you run droids.
Yeah.
Well,
That's supposed to be an asterisk. I don't know what happened.
but
It was so
I mean,
close, right?
I just need another finger. 2 more fingers.
But I mean, even if you run droids, if you're saying you're running droids, and let's say you're running HK-47 and you're running IG-86, IG-88, you're running Poe and you're running Poggle, who are you going to take out?
Yeah, we were chatting about that in the last episode, and I think another thing about the Jawas is they don't have when you go through them and you're looking at the leads, for me, the Jawa that's disappointed me the most is Dacha. For a start, he's got his own name, so you feel like he should be better than just Jawa whoever. But as we know with Genesian Soldier, that's not always the case. But he's just the most underwhelming, uninteresting character who really should, if they retooled him to have some interesting characteristics, kind of like they retooled Royal Guard and just brought him from the dead, then we might be talking. But there's just no, it's everything. It's like there's no lead that is really inspiring. All of their kits just kind of don't do anything that is really required in the current meta, whether in PvP, whether in Galactic War, whether in the raid, your 3, and of course light side and dark side battles. There's no point in the game where you need them, and that's kind of the most disappointing thing.
With the introduction of protection, unless we see some sort of mass rebalancing. Damn, Danny and I have this camera angle where I'm trying to look up at the camera, but I can't look at you guys at the same time. And so while Grande Patron was talking there, I was trying to focus on looking up at the camera. but then I realized that when I'm talking, I just look crazy. So I'm just gonna look at the computer screen. The camera angle doesn't matter. But I think with protection and the introduction of that, I just don't see another meta where the current AoE-esque parts of Jawa will really, really destroy teams, because you're really never going to have those teams again that are going to get kind of blown out in 1 or 2 AoEs. They're going to take a lot more than that, and people running other things like RG, Old Daka is just such a heavy counter to those. So I think, like, even if you were chasing the meta a little bit, or not chasing it, I don't know, crystal balling the meta a little bit, I think Jawas would be a terrible choice. I just don't see how they would
they're,
make it.
they're the last on the list, I think.
Yep.
So lunges? No, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. All right, let's go on to our last little episode, or little bits that we do.
Section.
So,
It's called a section.
Section,
Yeah.
not episodes. This is not a new episode. So we're gonna do "It's More Than a Feeling" now. Now, "It's More Than a Feeling" is
Sorry, I had to sing it.
"It's More Than a Feeling" has kind of devolved a little bit. I think into just stuff like, how there's Reddit shower thoughts. It's kind of just like our things we've been talking about this week.
Yeah.
But all right, what's more than this feeling is that I think Chewy, we were talking about this earlier, is that Chewy seems like he's actually starting to get good. There's a guy in my top 5 that's running Chewy, and at first, when I saw it, I was like, that's ridiculous. Why would you be running that? And then, as I thought about it a little bit more, I thought maybe he's not the worst thing in the entire world if you ran him with Royal Guard. And then also, it seems like he's getting pretty good in the PvE. So, all right, Danny, I'm going to throw this one to you first. What do you think?
Well, I've seen him a lot in like Galactic War, and I understand why he could be good in raids. However, I haven't seen him a lot in Arena, and I don't see him fitting in any kind of comp myself in Arena. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm going to throw it to somebody else who maybe has a bit more information or understanding of why he would be good. I just don't think he's quite there yet.
All right, Patron, what do you think?
Okay, so let's say you had a hodgepodge team and you were trying to not lose spots in PvP. You potentially could throw Chewbacca in as lead because his leader ability is 40% plus defense. So maybe if you just were like all over the map on your characters, you might be able to do something like that. There's a couple challenges I have with Chewie. He's really tough to gear, and so when I start looking at his gear, I keep going, man, I could gear up somebody else instead of putting a gear on Chewie. And Chewie does give defense, but he doesn't give. For a defense team, I'd rather see somebody like a Barris lead, where she's giving health to everybody every time she's. I mean, which is better? Defense is kind of non-quantifiable in this game, where I can actually see if I run Barris lead that she's putting extra health on everybody, so I know
something every time. It's just
so I know it's working, right? Or a Lumi lead, where every time they go, they're getting a little bit of health every time it's their turn. So I would probably want to see that before I'd want to see Chewie. Now, we have some people that are big Chewie fans. There's a guy, Dimitri, I think on the Discord server, he's a big Chewie fan. With the turn meter and the taunt, we see better people at turn meter, and we see better people at taunt, and we see better people that can self-heal. So I'm not seeing the Chewie thing. What I am seeing as characters that we used to not talk about very much, Akbar. Never used to hear anything about Akbar. Never used to hear anything about Akbar. Now, last week it was Stormtrooper Han. This week it's Akbar.
Yeah.
So,
if only
whatever
you
that's
could
worth.
put a team together.
Joe, are you thinking the same thing with Chewie?
Well, for me, it was just one of those things where I already have a Chewie sitting there on about 5-star, because you get given one when you start playing the game.
You do? Oh my god.
And yeah, and so I just felt like he is a good conversion to a 6-star character if you just put a little bit of effort in. And like Dimitri says, you know, it's a taunt with turn meter. Like he's not a bad guy to have in the raid, but yeah, everywhere else in the game, you could take him or leave him.
The only arena comp that I could ever see him in would be something like a really controlling kind of comp where you run him, ST Han, Royal Guard, Daka, and Poggle, so you can actually like kill someone within the 5-minute time limit, and then maybe just try and stun, turn meter control, that type of thing. But even then, I think it's just so reaching, and I think there are people that just do his job better.
Yeah, he's just dead weight, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest, at this point.
Yeah. Okay, we had another section, but I think we're going to throw that to the wayside right now. We will do
Let's do another section later because I came up with a good little.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
It was good.
Maybe we'll start the next episode with our other section. So, Grande Patron, thank you very much for
Absolutely.
Coming on to the episode. We really appreciate it. Thank you for leading the guild. That's also a task that I can't imagine dealing with.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Actually, I'll introduce our other thing was going to be Wish Upon a Star, and we were going to talk about what move do you want the new Han Solo to have. We already know one of his abilities is already spoiled, and maybe some of the other ones are. I saw a video recently that maybe shows them, but who cares about that? Tell us what you want him to do. Maybe I'll just quickly say my wife had an idea where she wanted every time that he was in a team, if the other team had women on it, they would do slightly less damage to him. That was pretty good.
Little hearts coming above his head.
Yeah, she was like, no, but you'd have to know. So there had to be like little hearts, like they were wooed by it. Which I thought was pretty good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Like the Cupid arrow or something like that.
Yeah. He just hits them with Cupid arrows coming from his eyes or something like that. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. And at the very beginning of the next episode, we will look into that and we'll give you what we were thinking, and it'll probably be spoiled by then, but it'll be great. So thanks a lot, Grande Patron, for coming on, and we will catch you next time. This is Greg, Danny, and Joe, and Grande Patron signing out. Ritual Gaming, peace.